Hello everyone, today we have two products in one review and we're going to cover KLEVV RAMs and SSD. So it's going to be quite interesting because I had never had these RAMs especially at this high speed. So we're going to talk about KLEVV CRAS C925 RGB DDR5 2x24 gigs at 8200 MHz. And right here we have CRAS C925 M.2 Gen4x4 1TB, which comes also with attachable passive heatsink that is actually thicker than I saw usually. So it's going to be quite interesting to check everything out. So with the CRAS C925, we have standard Gen 4x4 speeds, and this is good. At least what they stated. I'm not talking about the benchmarks yet. So what they stated is that the read speeds of 1TB go up to 7400 megabytes and the write speeds go up to 6300 megabytes. This is for 1TB. For 2TB, 7400 megabytes read, and write is up to 6500 megabytes. That is solid. I would say just cool. Now, what does this SSD have in general? We have 3D TLC NAND flash, then we have NVMe 2.0, SLC caching, Acronis backup software, and 5 years limited warranty. Apart from SLC caching, it has HMB technology for better endurance and performance improvement. Then we have the LDPC engine, again for everything that I mentioned, end-to-end data path protection, SRAM error handling, global wear leveling for extended SSD lifespan, also thermal throttling algorithm to protect the integrity, self-monitoring analysis and report technology, which is basically smart, and AES 256-bit encryption, which ensures the data security. Comes in 500 gigabytes, 1TB and 2TB of capacity. The controller is Maxio MIP 1602, and we already encountered this controller a couple of times during past reviews, so it's going to be quite familiar to actually see the results, and I don't think we'll have any issues with it because it's a well-known controller in those terms, but it's drumless. And still, it's more like a cost-effective, let's put it this way. And basically that is it when we're talking about, in general, some specs, what you need to know. Now, for the speeds, ASSD 6500 67.24 megabytes per second and write speeds 5800 24.01 megabytes per second. Out of disk benchmark 6.91 gigabytes per second read and write speed 6.34 gigabytes per second. And Crystal Disk Mark, now in Crystal Disk Mark we actually see what they wrote on the box. 7377.09 megabytes per second, while the write speed 6241.47 megabytes per second. Since we're doing this in two package, in terms of, let's say, two reviews in one, the thermals were okay, so I'm going to shorten it up a bit so I don't go too much into details. But the thermal's okay, and what I usually state in out of this benchmark, you see the consistency, so you can notice that we don't have any thermal throttling, since we have a couple of benchmarks one after another. And in those terms, if you don't have consistency, you'll notice the difference in speeds over there. But the KLEVV CRAS C925 actually had similar, well, basically the same speeds in read and write after the initial start, so that's outstanding. It's single-sided, but the thickness is there because of the passive heatsink, which does transfer the heat towards the passive heatsink of the motherboard, so you don't have to worry about no thermal throttling. When we're talking about attaching the passive heatsink, it's really simple. You just have to remove the foil from the double-sided sticky thermal pad that is attached to the passive heatsink. You just apply it, and the good thing is you already know what orientation the heatsink needs to go, so it's really straightforward, nothing too complicated. So all in all, when you take into consideration the price, the speeds, even though it's drumless, it has SLC caching, and I didn't notice any issues regarding the transfer speeds after my benchmarks or anything similar to that, so that's good. But now we have to go towards these are CRAS V RGB, and they come in two color schemes, obsidian black and brilliant white, and these look exquisite because it looks like it has some sort of a matte finish. You have an opening here on the sides, which it isn't for heat dissipation, but it's more for RGB lights, so it kind of shines on the lettering here, CRAS V RGB, and a nice diffused LED strip at the top. Because why I'm saying diffused, because you can't see individual LEDs. And I know we witnessed some RAMs in the past that actually were really hideous in those terms, that actually had those. So if in some scenario, and when you check out the B-roll, there is some sort of a LED shining bright, that's just because of the camera, not because of this. So yeah. Now at 8200 megahertz, they're running at CL38 with 1.45 volts. We have a quite nice 2mm thick aluminum heatsink design, minimalistic, definitely. Clean RGB lights without the LED bleed, as I stated. Built-in PMIC for better power management, on-die ECC, integrated thermal sensor, and support for Intel XMP 3.0 and AMD Expo ready. Clock speeds go up to 8400 MHz, but today we're testing, as I stated, 8200 MHz 2x24. Total height is 44 millimeters, so it should fit most of the air coolers without any problems, and has support for ASUS Sync, Gigabyte RGB Fusion 2.0, MSI Mystic Lights, ASRock Polychrome Sync. When we take apart the RAM module, what you can see is we have the MCU, we have the RGB LED lighting, built-in PMIC, thermal sensor IC, 10-layer PCB, aluminum heatsink, and on-die ECC. IC is SK Hynix, and we have 288-pin DIMM form factor, which is kind of obvious. I can't say that we have something different here. Now, essencore is the module manufacturer. SDRAM manufacturer is SK Hynix. We have a symmetrical rank mix. Module density is 24,576. We have 1 die per package. We have 8 bank groups, 4 banks per group. SPD manufacturer is Montage Technology Group, and the type is SPD 5118. PMIC manufacturer is Riftec Power, and the device type is PMIC 5100. Now I wanted to extend the benchmark with these RAMs to give you a bit more on the performance. So I used MSI MPG Z890 Carbon Wi-Fi with Intel Core Ultra 9 285K, and it's quite interesting. So in Cinebench we had quite interesting scores. The CPU temperature and clock speed are irrelevant, but in general the Cinebench score was from 40,126 to 40,164, which is quite solid, I do have to say. Now let's go with the speeds. In AIDA64 cache and system memory, CL38 at 8200 MHz, read speeds goes up to 119.30 gigabytes per second, write speed goes up to 103.62 gigabytes per second, copy 107,901 megabytes per second, so 107.9 gigabytes per second. Latency is 87.4 nanoseconds, which is outstanding, and operating at 1.45 volts. Corona 1.3 with that processor, 45 seconds with 10.7 million rays per second. AIDA64 AES 251,971 megabytes per second. Corona 10, 12.6 million samples per second. And Indigo Benchmark 370 million samples per second. Supercar 8.720 million samples per second. In those terms, checking out the benchmarks, what I can say is that all the synthetic benchmarks that did the runs and the tests and everything all together, it was a bit above what I tested with other, let's say, on other motherboards in general with lower speeds of RAMs and similar stuff. But what impressed me is that these are currently at the top of my list with all the RAMs that I tested so far. So they are really, really good. And the cool thing is you get the design, you get the performance, and quite solid price, without a doubt. So that's really cool. I mean, let's be honest. If you're looking for something slick and you'll have either black or white build in those configurations, or you just add additional colors, that's why you have the RGB strip to pair it up. And the obsidian black or the brilliant white really do look quite nice. I'm really digging the nice matte finish. Yeah, altogether, big thumbs up. Since these are currently on top 1 position at my benchmarks, they're getting a PC Crazy Performance badge. So, I mean, it's kind of obvious. They're at the top list at the moment, so we're going to go with that. Each individual that will pass these eventually will get that as well. But currently, these are on my list, number 1. So, yeah, quite satisfied with the performance, without a doubt. And that's all there is to it. Links for the KLEVV CRAS V RGB DDR5 2 times, yeah, I said RGB DDR5 2 times 24 gigs at 8200 megahertz are in the description below. And I'll do one thing, I'll place the Obsidian Black and Brilliant White as well, so you don't have to search too much. And of course the KLEVV CRAS C925 1 and 2 terabytes, just so you kind of find what you need exactly. That'll be all for today, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, click the notification bell, and I'll see you shortly in another one. Bye bye.